guest today is one of the great spiritual masters of our time.
Applauded, celebrated, awarded the Nobel Prize.
One of India's great national inspiration.
I'm delighted to welcome.
Hello and welcome to my series of conversations with men and women whose ideas, vision and philosophy define our contemporary world. My guest today is a philosopher, a man of letters. He's been a distinguished national and international bureaucrat. He's been most recently in the news for his remarkable book, Bahudha and the Post-9/11 World. He served as an executive director of the World Bank. He was Home Secretary, Secretary Culture, Chairman of the National Commission for Backward Classes, the Chancellor of the Tibetan Institute of Higher Studies in Sarnath, a long list of impressive, incredible credentials. He's also chief editor of an Oxford University press series that looks at South Asia, economics, technology and governance. I'm delighted to welcome Mr. B P Singh. Mr. Singh, you've just done this book, Bahudha and the Post-9/11 World. It sort of the essential philosophy draws from the Rig Veda. The Bahudha sort of translates to my mind in loosely, perhaps in manifold. It looks at the issues of plurality, and it was obviously a response to the events of 9/11 and the fractured world that we are living in. Maybe I could start off that the thing that struck me was that at least one of the reviewers was pointing out as to how your position was that there is one truth and that there are different sages and different people who interpret it variously. As someone who has sort of been head of the institute in Sarnath and a scholar of Buddhism too, it appeared to me not an interpretation that I would agree with, because there are schools that believe in relative truths and not in one truth. And surely part of the problem is that we tend to believe in one truth and not a variety of truths.
Thank you very much for your observations. I must narrate to you how this book came, and that will partly explain your point of view. I was executive director at the World Bank when 9/11 took place. 10 days later, there was a think tank which has organized a lecture by one of the scholars on terrorism. I was also invited. I went there, and he talked of how to deal with terrorism, how it is necessary to have a group of nations, and also how to respect pluralism and how to contain Islamic fundamentalism. And then the chairperson she started praising India and India's experience of different faiths and tolerance, and gave me the floor, introducing me and gave me the floor. I hadn't gone there to speak, I had gone there to listen. And I remember I said then that while India may have the answer, I do not. And then went on to narrate the experience of handling terrorism in India. But that set me thinking, what could be India's answer? And then perchance I was looking at Sri Aurobindo's writings, because this was one of my desires, that once I am free from office responsibilities, I would like to read Sri Aurobindo. And he said in another context that one of the qualities of a developed civilization is that it can explain in a word or two both the phenomenon of the present and also provide a path, a marg as he called it. And then I thought that what could be India's marg out of this post 9/11 world conflict. And then I was looking for, and then they say that when the student is ready, the teacher comes. So this Rig Vedic hymn of ekam sad viprah bahudha vadante came to me, and in the whole phrase I took the word bahudha. I did not take the word ekam sad, I took the word bahudha, and bahu is, as you rightly said, many, and dha is suffixed to make it an adverb, and it means manifold, it means many times, again and again in a time frame. And I went deeper into this and found that bahudha is close to pluralism, because that is the English word, but pluralism, it is more than pluralism. As dharma is more than religion, bahudha is more than pluralism, in as much as it denotes diversity, but it also is an attitude of mind, and it is this attitude of mind that gave me the answer, and that says that while I am talking to you, I have a point of view, but I have also cultivated an attitude that you may perhaps be right. So it is that dialogic approach of give and take, of reaching somewhere, as many scholars have called the middle path, the middle ground, and that bahudha aims at. But India's civilizational experience has many such qualities. There are other civilizations also which have these qualities, but since my background is more of India, so I have taken various examples from India.
Also, since your background is in shaping policy and shaping administration and the structures and processes, your book also looks at and explores how through curricula, how through education, how through cultural policy and other such initiatives, this approach to celebrating diversity is sort of my phrase. I mean, I think that sort of has a more affirmative quality than tolerance or even pluralism, which seems somewhat passive.
No, you are absolutely right.
And I think that is also an articulation that your earlier book on culture really was looking at and exploring. The celebration of diversity, it has a quality of upliftment to it. So what are some of these mechanisms that could be in practical terms? You were Secretary Culture in the government, and can these processes emanate from government initiatives? You've looked so extensively at cultural policies of government, but do they really work? Do they make an impact?
I must make a point here that, as students we were brought up in a tradition, and right tradition, where our leaders and scholars emphasized that respect for all religions.
But they also talked about unity in diversity.
Yes, unity in diversity.
And to my mind, that was
Yes.
sort of very sterile.
Yes, yes.
Because it's sort of a unity.
Yes.
So you're looking for unity where actually we want to celebrate diversity.
Yes. We talked of these things, but I found that Bahudha takes us beyond, in the sense that you respect all religions, but that does not mean that you have a dialogic approach. You are not listening to the other. You may respect, but you have to go beyond that. Similarly, when you say about unity in diversity, this was more, there was some kind of an American influence which talked of the melting pot civilization or melting pot culture, where the boundaries get lost. Bahudha is aware of the fact that democracies are plural in nature, but a pluralist state and pluralism are different things. And while pluralism respects boundaries, Bahudha approach also says that there are certain things which go beyond boundaries, and it must transcend boundaries. But that does not mean that you assimilate boundaries, you respect boundaries. So the unity comes when you transcend, because the threats are common, and if the threats are common, whether it is from terrorism or manufactured hatreds, or whether it is from religious fundamentalism, then in that case the unity has to be there to transcend those loyalties which take you to those boundaries. Because one of the things that I found, and that is worrying the West more than us, that and some parts of Asia also, some people feel that my God is superior to your God. Some people feel that hatred is necessary, you must hate somebody to secure your own nationalism. These are all preventive wars will secure world peace. We have found that these slogans can lead to more problems. These slogans do not lead to peace.
And in what ways sort of the insight and understanding that you articulate so eloquently in this book and others approaches to the celebration of diversity, in what ways can this move beyond intellectual realms of understanding to transform and impact communities, societies, civilizations, nations?
Yes.
And that is an area of your own
Yes,
interest and work.
Three things are very important. First, we see that very clearly, that at every level, whether it is the village, the community or the state, conflict resolution mechanisms are necessary, because the conflicts are there, violence is there. The second thing which is very important again is that there are certain institutions of our society which have influenced us or which have shaped our thinking for a long time to come, like religion or religious values, like education system or curricula which you referred to. And the third thing that is actually very, very important is the system of rule of law. So, the conflict resolution mechanism will have to have all the components. I can't think of Bahudha approach flourishing when there is no rule of law. So, the state system has to ensure that there is good governance, because bad governance or ineffective governance can lead to civil wars, can lead to conflicts. It is effective governance that can be conducive to dialogue, that can be conducive to conflict resolution. Now, here there are various types, and the cultural realm is very important, because most of the conflicts are coming in that realm, and it is there that thinking has to change. And what is important is for the state to realize that secularization of the polity is necessary in case of a conflict between religion and a law, secular law.
Isn't this someone with vast experience and confidence in the administrative system, or at least in its potential speaking? Because in some ways what attracted me about the philosophy that you expound here is that if experientially understood, it sort of takes a step behind, preemptive of anything that an administration or a policy needs to do, because if that's where we can begin to come from, there will be no conflict in the first place to resolve.
You are at some stage right, but when it is projected at the global level, and that is the American policy, the national security policy of the United States today, which talks of preventive wars. I know that some country is manufacturing bombs, I will go and attack it, so that there is no problem in future. Now, that is negation of the rule of law, because the international political architecture demands that you cannot attack another nation because you are privy to some information. There has to be a system. Now, so it could negate everything. At the same time, when you talk of, say, a district magistrate or a state chief secretary or a state chief minister, when he has reliable information, and I have handled that many times in my various capacities, that this has to be done. Now, without disclosing any state secret, I must tell you, there was a case in 1998 where the Prime Minister of India had to do something to convince a chief minister to do something which he was not willing to do. And I knew that I can't get back home till the preventive action is taken, because if the preventive action is not taken, then next day that city would be in flames. We had reliable information. So it was only at midnight or past midnight that the chief minister agreed to authorize the police to take preventive action. So preventive action needs to be interpreted in the context of the rule of law. The rule of law, when it permits you to take action, you must do that. And the dialogue is not there.
Because someone would argue that you have far too much faith, perhaps, in the law. Forget the rule of law. I think it's it's commonly when people say the law is an ass, there is more than some truth in it, with due respects to the law and those who formulate it and implement it. Because I see you coming in your articulations and in your life's work, in fact, as something that goes beyond law, and is looking at the human condition, is looking at human nature, and how and in what ways and what mechanisms can that be transformed and changed and impacted, and that the implements of administration or the district magistrate or American foreign policy or whatever are merely catalysts towards that end. And I think the great Indian civilizational genius has been our ability to achieve that. So in terms of the mechanisms that can bring about those personal transformations that will change our attitude, so maybe one day in utopia we won't need the law.
Two things are, two things
Don't bring me down to reality.
Two things are necessary. First, we must appreciate that I am not visualizing a society which is free of violence. I am also not visualizing a society which does not have instruments of force, or a society without security forces or military force. I am not visualizing that. What I am visualizing is that human nature, if hatred could be taught, love could also be taught. What I am visualizing is that human nature will have both love and hatred, but it is basically oriented towards love, because everybody wants good living. Now, the deprivations caused by poverty, illiteracy, disease, and these are even more fundamental problems in my view in the long term than even terrorism. And it is there that the effectiveness of the state system is necessary and the social system is necessary. The second aspect which you hinted at, if the outside journey of public action has to be in the realm of governance, in the realm of creation of wealth, in the realm of equitable international political order, then there is a private journey of each one of us, that inner space. In that inner space, that has to be a spiritual journey. That has to be a journey where the mind walls are broken, where prejudices are diminished. So it is both the outside journey in the realm of public action and inside journey in the realm of spirituality and happiness, that a combination has to take place.
You're watching a conversation with author, former bureaucrat, philosopher, writer, activist in some ways, B P Singh. We'll be right back after a short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to a continuing conversation with Mr. B P Singh. You've been talking about social action and moving away from the philosophy of Bahudha. Well, not really moving away, because in some senses that subsumes your worldview, no matter which area of action you look at. You've been Home Secretary. You were chairman of the Commission for Backward Classes. You've Secretary of Culture. You've had an incredible engaging in the problems and issues of the Northeast, on issues of governance. In this climate of rapid economic growth, despite sort of the current hiccup, perhaps, there is great anxiety and concern on one of the issues that you mentioned, the question of equity. And equity is both a function of the nature of economic progress and the way we look at economic growth and we plan, and also of minds, of mental attitudes, and of how we look at the otherness of the other. Staying with this aspect of policy and administration that you're looking at, this vast gamut of experience, in what ways can we begin to address attitudes of equity?
In equity, two aspects are very fundamental. One is this growing gulf between the haves and the have-nots, which is being articulated. But the other is the growing gulf between men and women. And the need is to look at this gender issue in a direct fashion. And I do believe that what we have done in terms of Panchayati Raj has given Indian democracy a certain degree of stability, but we have to move in that direction because you will appreciate that we belong to a country where for centuries women were denied rights to read and to be on their own or to be economically independent. The second aspect is again very important related to equity is livelihood. Now, I do not mean by livelihood that you give everybody a job in a factory or in a tourist lodge or things
or a
of that
handout
nature.
through the Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme.
Yes.
How do you look at the Rural
Yes,
Employment Guarantee
I
Scheme?
have looked at that scheme. That scheme has been conceived in a right way, but what has happened is that the livelihood programs are not aimed at local resources and creating permanent assets. Now, there is no audit on that what it has created, because after all I do believe that if a couple gets 150 rupees a day, I am putting 75 rupees as his daily wage, then he or she will send their children to school, and that the persuasions by Naxalites or insurgent groups will not succeed. So, livelihood is very crucial, but I am looking at livelihood and I am looking at the problem of ecology and sustainable development together. So, what is necessary is that innovative approaches are called for in looking at this rural employment guarantee program to create livelihood at from a long term angle, and looking at the women issue. It is still, I think sometimes the statistics will come, it is still male dominated rural employment program. It is still a contractor driven rural employment guarantee program, or the panchayat driven. It should be Gaon Sabha driven rural development program. It should be also ecology driven rural employment guarantee program. So, these are the areas of concern.
As someone who's held so many distinguished positions in the government of India, and I'm keeping your executive directorship of the World Bank at bay for a while, what was your most satisfying achievement? The process of reorganizing states, the events in 1998 that you alluded to, managing them or not managing them. So what has been your most sort of moment of satisfaction, triumph, achievement?
There are many, but yes, the estates reorganization, creating 3 estates without going through the Estates Reorganization Commission was a moment of great achievement, because I still remember when we first went to the cabinet, there were different voices, and then I was asked to come with one voice. So, my love for books and accompanying of scholars helped me, and then when we looked at the constitution closely, we found that the framers of the constitution had provided for a way out, that you need not have to go through a commission, so long as the state assembly is willing to propose division of a state. The parliament is in its in its wisdom can accept that, and then the whole process can be set into motion, and we did that. This was a moment of great achievement, but there were many, and sometimes small things gave me great achievement when I could secure release of an innocent person, when I could reach a poor person to give succor. I must tell you one example, and that will tell you how much I value, and that was as a Deputy Commissioner of Tejpur. This was in a Mangaldoy subdivision, now that is a separate district. When I went to the village, and this was drought hit, and I went to a house where 2 earthen pots full of water were burning, and 4 children were crying, and the lady of the house told me that the husband has gone to fetch some rice and some dal, and I am keeping the pot burning because for the last 40 hours or so we had no food, and the children are half asleep, half fainted. And when I gave them, I had the power to give everybody 25 rupees. So when I gave them 125 rupees and plus food and all that, those 5 pairs of eyes and the joy in that is my lifelong experience. So small things have helped me.
So you're now sort of primarily a man of letters, you're a Mahatma Gandhi fellow. Any unfinished agendas of action? Writing is a form of action, engaging philosophically, writing, articulating is all action. But you feel anything incomplete from your tenure as an administrator? Something else you'd like to have done?
Yes. I think that when we joined service, we felt that we will transform the system. But one trend that has happened is that the civil service has lost the trust. There is declining trust curve in respect of the civil service, which is a matter of sadness. But on the other side, there is a increase in the faith of the individual, which is a matter of happiness. So I feel that if as a former civil servant or as a writer, if I could enhance the individual spirit, the individual initiative to build a better India, I think that area calls me, and I would like to devote my time to that area.
And that would be a worthy following in the footsteps of the Mahatma as a Gandhi fellow. Thank you very much, sir. This has been a great privilege and a great learning experience.